The content of this podcast is for informational and storytelling purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. Please consult a qualified healthcare professional for any medical concerns or decisions. This episode includes discussions of pregnancy loss and miscarriage, which may be distressing for some listeners. Please take care of yourself while listening and feel free to skip this episode if you need to. Hi, Stephen. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I just wanted to take a minute to talk a little bit about this podcast and why we had this idea to do it. But first, I just want you to just introduce yourself and tell us about your podcast briefly, because I think like just the fact that you have experience in podcasting sort of made us a good match to make this together.
Yeah, so I'm Stephen. I host a podcast about testicular cancer, and I always talk with the patients and survivors. Sometimes I talk to caregivers, but really there's no focus on the other person. And I know like when I was going through it, I was with my parents, and my mom was really like my momager is what I called her. And She did a lot of the worrying for me, did all the scheduling and everything. So, you know, it would be interesting to hear from the other person's perspective, right? In my case, it would be my mom. In the case that we're going to talk about in this episode, it's my wife and I going through something different. So the idea for this podcast came about because, you know, I know you're a really empathetic person, so I think you'd be a great host talking with other people who have been through different things. And then with my experience doing this other podcast, I think it was a perfect opportunity to start something new and tell people stories.
Yeah, for sure. I think in my experience as a nurse and a lactation consultant too, I often see what a big role partners play, but how often basically they're just left out of the conversation. So, and not necessarily on purpose, right? Like it's much more about the focus being on, like you said, like the patient or the parent that's like giving birth or pregnant or whatever it may be. And I feel like there is this whole like important infrastructure of our support people and our family, like you said, our best friends, our spouses. And so I think including their stories gives us a much fuller picture of the experience itself. I think often, even if we feel like we're a little bit isolated, there's somebody else there. There's somebody else that cares. So I think, I think it's just a great idea to talk to people, get that full picture, and address different subjects with that full perspective in mind and not just the affected person.
Yeah, absolutely. Great.
So you so generously offered to be my first guest for this podcast, which I appreciate, and I'm glad to talk to you today. And what we're going to be talking about today is pregnancy loss, a little bit about trying to get pregnant and things like that. And so obviously, difficult subject matter. So I just really appreciate your vulnerability and willingness to talk, and mostly really just being able to share this story with other partners that are going through similar things. I think just knowing that we're not alone is an important part of humanity. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem. And, you know, our story is ours, and everybody's story is unique, but there are going to be some through lines with everybody that everyone can relate to.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think even somebody once said to me, like, when you empathize with someone, you don't actually have to completely be in their shoes or have their perspective. It's if you identify with the core feeling, you can empathize. And so I think all of us, have gone through different things. And so just with that in mind, we know that there's always a place for us to empathize with one another. So, all right. So I'm just going to ask you a couple questions. And just at any point you need a break, let me know. So at the beginning here, I just want to start by telling us a little bit about your relationship, when you guys got married, and then what the journey looked like when you guys decided you wanted to start a family.
Yeah, so Ashley and I met through a mutual friend, coworker for me, friend for her, in 2019, the back half of 2019, right before the pandemic. And then I had just finished my treatment for testicular cancer. I actually met her a week before my final surgery, and then we really started hanging out after that. She was very nice and drove me around to different restaurants and getting ice cream and took me to Panda Express for the first time, which now is one of my staple spots during lunch. And so then the pandemic happened, and we she stayed over a lot. And then when she was going through clinical with her job, it made it easier because she was closer to the hospital to stay with me. So then she, was staying with me. We ended up getting married in 2022. And I wouldn't say that we waited to try. We were pretty excited to get to trying. And then it took a little bit of time.
Yeah. Okay. And so from my understanding, you've had 2 losses. Is that correct?
Yes.
So just thinking about the first time that you all had that positive pregnancy test, what were those early emotions like for you both?
She was definitely more nervous than I was. Now, I'm not somebody who outwardly expresses emotion very well, so I don't know if I'm the greatest guest for this podcast, but I'm happy to get it started. But I mean, internally, I was very excited. I mean, we had been trying for, I think it was at least a year, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. Mm-hmm. So when it finally happened, we were both excited, her outwardly, me inwardly.
Right. You were just kind of processing, right? That sort of thoughtfulness. And then when you all were first talking about what your expectations were around a family, do you have a certain number in mind? Are some of those things subjects that you've discussed?
We're both products of families that have 2 kids, so that's kind of what we both were hoping for. Now, at this point, which we'll get to, we'll be happy with one healthy baby, no matter what
amazing
the case is. But we were both, ideally we'd have 2. Get out of this house, we'd have to have a 3rd room so we can do more podcasts and not intrude on a bedroom, but time will tell.
Yeah, that's fair. So with that first, and actually I don't really know how to totally separate the 2. So we'll just talk a little bit about both, but if one of these questions resonates more with one of the situations, please feel free to mention that. So can you take us back to when you first realized something wasn't right with either of the losses? What was that those moments like when that happened?
With the first one, it was kind of a weird time because she was sick with both COVID and the flu, at least is what we're told. She tested positive for both at different times. I had known that she was pregnant, so I had asked my bosses if I could be home with her just in case anything were to go wrong. We knew it was a very fragile time. Now, I don't know if those things caused the first loss. We were told that it shouldn't have. But it was definitely, it made an interesting time right around that first one.
Yeah, I would imagine that's where my head would go. My body was in a weakened state, my immune system was down, all the things. So I can understand that perspective. And then what was going through your mind the second time?
The second time was a little bit different because the first one happened at 9 weeks. So we hadn't had an ultrasound that showed any anatomy. So the second one, when we got to that, I think it was 8 weeks or 10 weeks, whatever it is that you can see the anatomy, we were relieved to see that there was a baby in there growing. And then it was probably, I don't remember exactly what tipped us off. Now, Ashley did do the genetic testing. Actually, this is what it was. So the genetic testing came back and showed that there was a risk for a genetic abnormality. Now, immediately we thought, this is it. We did a lot of looking on Reddit and online and found that sometimes that test is not 100% accurate, and there are false positives. So our families and even us privately, we were kind of cautiously optimistic. We thought that maybe it was a false positive. And then we went and had another ultrasound where they confirmed that there was, in fact, a life-threatening genetic abnormality.
Gotcha. Okay. And so in those times, in that second time, obviously, I would imagine with the weight of the first time, knowing that you were going to lose this child as well, how did you feel like you intuitively wanted to support Ashley? And then did you follow through on what those like innate feelings were, or did you act differently? How did you support her during that time?
It's tough. I'm not, like I said, I'm not the greatest at showing feelings, whereas she is, and she's amazing and expresses her feelings, and it's awesome that she does that. Now, I'm not exactly the best one always to receive that, but I think we were both numb when we first, the doctor came in and he did another ultrasound after the tech had done it, and he was kind of going over, showing like, this is XYZ.
Right.
From that point on, we were both pretty numb. Now, looking back, I think that she said that she wishes that she had more time to make decisions. I tried to be supportive, and like when we went into the office with the genetic counselor to make the decisions that I thought would be hard for her to say, knowing now that she wishes she had more time, maybe I would have done things differently, but I think ultimately the best decision was made. We might have had more time to think about it.
Yeah. And I think it is always hard to look back and know, right, what would have been more right or felt better or those types of things. So I can imagine that's difficult. And I mean, in terms of your own grief during that time, that early time, because we'll get into a little bit later, but did it hit you right away, or did you feel like you were just a little bit too focused on like what happens next and is Ashley safe? And, is kind of, where did your head go right then in terms of your grief?
I think I was more focused on the process of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I just knew from my experience with cancer, and I always say, like, even with the cancer, that I grew up skateboarding and riding dirt bikes, and not that I was ever good at those things, but they involve like falling down and getting back up. So I feel like that's a theme in my life, like with my cancer and now with these two losses. Like you fall down and you just have to get back up and keep going. Now I know that Ashley is different, and she'll tell you different. And that's kind of where we differ there. But I was just focused on the process and making sure that everything was going to go to plan.
Yeah. Okay. And then later on, like obviously as a person who's trying to support your wife, did you feel that you had time to really process your grief, or has that been ongoing for you? What does grief look like for you in this time?
I will say, last year, my top song on Apple Music was Gone Too Soon by Daughtry. It probably will be again. So I think, my grief, I think, is processed on my own through listening to, Bigger Than the Whole Sky by Taylor Swift on my drive home from work, or even at work. So I think that's how I process is through listening to music, and yeah. No, that makes sense. And how about the people in your life, right? So your family, Ashley's family, how did you feel seen by those people? Were they openly supportive to you most, or did you feel like it was more, again, like a lot of focus on Ashley primarily, obviously, but just thinking through, like, did your family approach you, or did your friends approach you and sort of say like, hey, I have your back? Or what did that look like in terms of the support that you personally received? So maybe not the support that you received as a couple, but more what kind of things did people do that you felt were helpful for you personally? Yeah, I mean, my feeling toward the support that we and I got is that it was satisfactory or exceeded expectations. Ashley's parents obviously were, primarily focused on her, but like when we I went golfing with her dad, and he would ask, how are you doing and everything, and my parents would always check on me as well, but everybody was focusing on Ashley too, which is great, and I wouldn't have it any other way, and of course they should focus on her, and that was the right thing to do.
Yeah, no, for sure. And obviously we touched on this a little bit multiple times, but do you find that talking about your emotions and feelings has always been difficult for you, or do you find that in this situation it's harder, or does it just feel similar to some of the things that you've processed in the past?
I think it's similar. You could go back and ask my mom, like in high school, we would always have the dark room conversations. So like whenever I was messed up about something, we would turn off the lights, and then she could get me to answer questions. But I think it's always been this way for me.
Okay. Do you have any opinions about how like society on the whole sort of supports partners that are processing pregnancy loss, like from what you've like seen or experienced, or like outreach you've had, or resources you've been given from, the doctors and everything? Do you feel like, there's a lot of resources, or do you feel like not as much?
As far as resources for the partners of somebody who has had a pregnancy loss, nobody's offered me anything. The doctors haven't said anything to me. For me, that's okay. For somebody else, it might be helpful, and maybe it would be helpful to me too if somebody offered me something. Right. I don't know what the options are because I haven't been presented with them. Okay,
that's helpful. I think it's interesting to know, again, like how partners are seen in this conversation. So I think that's helpful. And then just kind of moving on to like how these losses have affected your relationship with Ashley. How do you feel like things have evolved since this started?
I would not say that it's made us weaker. No, it's definitely, we've had, ebbs and flows. And again, I struggle with, being empathetic, and she'll agree to that when she hops on here. I just hope she doesn't bash me too much, but I think ultimately it's going to have made us stronger, and I look forward to the child that we hopefully can have together, and know that the appreciation we'll have for him or her will be unparalleled.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I guess, I think you've mentioned, I was going to say, in what ways did you and your partner grieve in different ways or similar ways? But it sounds like you are very different and you process things very differently. So I would imagine at times, like, I know in the past people will say, like, I don't know what to do with, when someone cries in front of me. Or so were there times when you felt sort of helpless in your support of Ashley when she was like really down or really struggling?
Yeah, definitely that's the case. I do know that, a sweet treat will be a good Band-Aid in the moment. She's started therapy on her own
good.
For this, so I think that is helpful. And I'm not really super involved with that, but she does have homework sometimes that involves me. But I think that's going to probably be where she gets most of her support. Now, I'm always here to support. I think that I struggle with what is maybe pretty common with guys, is that she'll say a problem and I'll give a solution, whereas maybe she just wants me to just listen. But that's hard for me.
Yeah. No, I understand that. I think, that's the perspective where often people will say, do you need me to listen, or do you want a solution? Right. So I think, I'm sure if it keeps happening, it'll be one of those things where you're like, okay, I've learned that I need to ask that question. Yeah. But yeah, I think you're probably a problem solver, and it feels good to come up with a solution. That probably feels very like tidy and like, here's the way that we can get through this. Okay, let's see. And then I guess it sounds that you seem to be a very hopeful person. Again, maybe because of some of the things that you've dealt with in your own life. Did you feel that there was a point after the second loss where things kind of moved a little bit from that deep grief and just struggle mentally to more of a hopeful feeling? Or are you the type of person that at the jump you're like, it's going to be okay, we're going to move on, like kind of a thing?
I mean, don't get me wrong. I've was sad. I've been sad, and I am sad to have lost Lily and the unnamed one that came before. But yeah, I think that I understand that no matter what, it's going to be okay, and whether it works out or not, it will be okay, and whatever's going to be is going to be.
Yeah,
I'm excited for the thought of having one eventually. Historically, our successes have been in the winter, so maybe I'm not so hopeful in the summer, but as we get closer to the winter, I'm thinking that that maybe we'll have success. I don't know if that has to do with body temperature or what, but that's my theory.
all right. Well, it is very hot where we are, so it's fair. So looking forward, do you feel like this experience has changed you, or do you feel that sort of the foundation of going through cancer and surviving that was more the thing that's changed you?
It's hard to pinpoint like one thing that has changed. I think, everything, just like the chemo, it compounds. So life compounds, and it's hard to, find exactly one thing that was the catalyst. I'm sure that it has changed me in ways that I don't realize yet. We're still, let's see, it's August and this second one happened in May. So we're, just over 4 months out. Or
that's pretty fresh.
3 months out. I'm sorry, my math's not good. So maybe I'll look back, in 5 years and recognize that something has changed.
It's hard when you're in it.
Yeah. Right now I can't, highlight one thing.
Yeah. Have you seen any changes in Ashley from these experiences in terms of her outlook or other ways you've seen things change?
I think that she is hopeful still, like I am, but she is also very cautious and doesn't want to let her guard down. So like if we do have another successful pregnancy, I think it'll be hard for her to be excited until the baby's here, and probably for me too. Now, I think that I can separate that these have been independent events. At least that's what they have told us. So like knowing that as long as we can both know that a third successful or fourth or whatever it is independent from the others is going to be good. I don't know if that answered the question that you asked, but
it's still good information. That's good. Okay, so if a partner's listening, so if someone's out there that is either going through this or has gone through this in the past, is there anything that you would, any message, any tidbits that you would want to share that, again, were helpful for you, or ways in which you felt the most supportive? Or is there anything that you can share, again, recognizing that grief is unique for everyone, but I guess just, is there any like takeaway that you would want to share?
I would say just what you said, that grief is unique for everyone. And if your way of grieving is listening to Want You More by Halsey, whatever her name is, that's fine. And if that's what it is, that's what it is. You don't have to necessarily shed tears, but however you grieve and what makes you feel better is okay.
Yeah, I really think that's important. I think it's important to recognize that there isn't a right way to grieve. And so I think that, sure, sometimes society expects us to look a certain way when we're grieving. And I think it's really a healthy perspective that you have that's sort of telling you, like, I'm grieving in my own way. And I think that's super important. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's pretty much it. I was gonna ask you about a moment or memory or something small that sticks with you, or what healing means to you. I don't know if either of those. I mean, like, I feel like we captured like quite a bit of it, just sort of like nuanced as we dug into the questions more deeply. So, but yeah, I mean, I really appreciate this perspective. I think it's really interesting to hear you talk a bit about what you like think that maybe you should be doing versus like what you feel capable of doing, and how that sort of translates into your unique relationship with your wife. So I think that's helpful too, because it's not always intuitive, and we can't always force ourselves to act a certain way or do a certain thing, even if we want to. So it's like, if, like you said, if your coping mechanism is to spend time in the car listening to music, or and it's not like sitting there talking to somebody about it or whatever, I think that's important, and I think everybody has their own way of doing that. So I appreciate you very much, and just like, thank you so much for being vulnerable.
Yeah, thank you for letting me be on here.
Yeah, it was a great first guest. If you want to hear the other side of this partner story, make sure to like and subscribe.